All right, guys, this is pre-calculus 121. So this one's going to be a little bit weird. They're purposely going to be using very strange units just to get you to focus on how they relate versus what you intuitively kind of know about certain unit types. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's intentional, but it is for a good reason. So to start off, we're going to be taking a look at this chart here. So it goes over this whole little story thing. It's not really all that relevant, but we have the WorldBot Corporation is going to try to bring more joys and happiness to the world with a robot called the Generous Botmatic. The Botmatic's generosity, measured in gives, depends on the WorldBot Corporation's kindness score. The WorldBot Corporation kindness score depends on the Grand Bot Master's always increasing wisdom, measured in experiences. So that's what I meant by they're giving you weird, crazy units on purpose. Okay, so basically what we have here is we have three different units we are looking at. We are looking at wisdom, which is measured in experiences, right? We have a kindness score, and then we have the generosity, which is measured in gives. So gives is like the so like feet per second or inches or whatever. That's what kind of gives are or experiences are, right? So we have the wisdom, the kindness score, and the generosity. Okay, so those are the three things we're looking at. So we have a table here. This table is how we can relate wisdom and kindness score. So a wisdom of 3 experiences is a kindness score of 2.4. Okay, so we can relate those in that way. So we know that. The other thing which we know is we can relate a kindness score to a generosity. So a kindness score of 25 is going to be 18 gives, and so forth, right? So we can kind of use this to relate back and forth between those. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and pause and then use those tables to answer parts A, B, C, and D. Once you're done, go ahead and resume. Okay, so first here we have if the kindness score, we want to find the kindness score when the wisdom is 4 experiences. So experiences being 4, the kindness score is 4.8. Yay, we used a table, right? And then we get on to part B, right? So we want to find the generosity, which when the kindness score is 200. So kindness score is 200. We have a generosity of 81, right? So 81 gives. Good. That one's not too bad either. Then we go to part C, right? We want to find the generosity when the wisdom is 5 experiences. So 5 experiences tells us, hey, it's a kindness score of 9.6. That's not what we are looking for. But we can say, well, if I have a 9.6 kindness score, going up here, 9.6 kindness score will give me 12.456 gives. Right? So that's how I can get my number of gives or my generosity off of a wisdom or a number of experiences. So that kindness score is kind of the link in the chain in a way of how I get over to here. And then the last one here, we want to find the wisdom when the generosity is 119.529. So generosity being 119.592. Sorry, I mixed those up. That is equivalent to a kindness score of 307.2, which is a kindness score of 307.2 is equivalent to 10 experiences. So we're kind of just doing that exact same thing we just did, but kind of going in the opposite direction for it. So if you can get that, you're in good shape, right? They're trying to get you of how we can go from one relationship and another one, and how we can kind of link through those to get a new relationship found out there. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So we're still using the kindness score and the generosity and the wisdom, right? We're going to see it in a different way. So tables are nice, but the problem with tables is they don't show you every single possible value, which is why equations and graphs are a little bit nicer for us. So now we have a graph that represents the kindness score as it relates to the wisdom, right? So we can use that. So now using this table and that graph, go ahead and answer parts A and B, pause it and answer those, then come back once you're done. All right, so on A, if the wisdom of the bot master is 11.75 experiences, what is the generosity? All right, so our wisdom, if we're at 11.75, we're kind of like there-ish. We can go up and maybe, hey, we're at 1,000 kindness score. Okay, so a 1,000 kindness score is equivalent to 369 gives. Right? So that's how we could relate that.
All right, student council members, you can.
Sorry about that. We got interrupted by an announcement. So that's how we can relate those things, right? So let's try it on B, right? If the generosity of the bot matic is 200 gives, what is the wisdom of the grand bot master? So if we have a generosity of 200 gives, well, that's not really here, right? What is the wisdom score of the grand bot master? So we're trying to find a wisdom score off of that. Well, let's kind of make an estimate here, right? So we know that's going to be kind of somewhere in between 153 and 225. So that was 400 for 153 and 600 for 225. So we can kind of guesstimate it, right? Easy, quick one is maybe, let's say it's about 500, right? So we're going to go to a kindness score of 500. What's that going to give us as far as a wisdom? Maybe like 10.75 or 10.6, whatever, right? Again, we're just trying to estimate these as our wisdom. All right, so let's try the next part. So this last little bit here, oops, I missed one. Okay, yeah, we're good. So what we're really kind of doing here is composing functions, which means we're going to take a function and we're going to plug it into another function, right? So if I take this f of x and I plug it into g of x, I get the g of f of x. You've probably seen this a little bit in the past, but we're going to kind of really hone in on it today. So notations that you're going to see are like we have here this g of fx. That's what I'm going to use primarily. You will see some books use this, but me and this book really prefer this one because it really kind of shows what is actually going on, where this is just kind of a more archaic notation that is kind of falling out of favor, but you will still see occasionally. So I wanted to point it out. Okay, so basically what we're doing is, if I'm going to do a function and then plug the answer into another function, which is what we've kind of been doing just kind of in tables and graphs form, this is really what we're kind of doing equation-wise. So we're taking this entire function and the entire function is now the input to this function. So what's going to happen when we do that? Well, let's try it out with kind of a number first, and then we'll kind of work into the actual function itself. So if I were to say, hey, let's drop 1 into the f machine. So if I put 1 in here, I get 4 times 1 is 4. 4 plus 7 is 11. So 11 is my output, right? So the f of 1 would be 11. So this would be an 11 here. So then I'm going to plug that 11 in here. 11 squared is 121. 121 minus 3 is going to give me 118. So 118 would be equivalent to the g of f of x. There. Okay. So go ahead and try that out for b through f. Pause the video, see what you can do, and then once you're done, go ahead and resume the video. So I'm going to skip through the negative 0.5 because it's just the same effective thing. If we do a, right? If I plug in a, I get 4a plus 7. So then I plug that in here. 4a plus 7 squared minus 3 is all that I can really do. I could multiply that out, but it's really not going to do anything more beneficial for me in doing that. Another question is, well, what is the g of f of x? Well, it's going to be the exact same thing as we had here, but the a is now an x, right? So it's just going to be 4x plus 7 where this x is, so 4x plus 7 in parentheses squared minus 3. And then how about if we have the g of f of x plus 1? Well, take the x plus 1, plug it in here, so you get 4 of x plus 1, so 4 times x plus 1 plus 7. I can reduce that out if I want to, which should give me like 4x plus 4 plus 7, so 4x plus 11. And then I would go down here, 4x plus 11 in parentheses squared minus 3. Again, you could multiply it out and reduce it, but that's probably fine as is. There we go, right? This is a very important concept, and once you kind of get, you just take whatever the input is, and you plug it in for whatever the x is. That's all it is. So don't overthink it and think that it has to be some number like you're more used to. You can plug in functions. You can plug in functions with other things in them. Whatever you want, it just goes in and replaces the x. Okay. So then, if we try and do this in the opposite way, so the f of g of x, so we take the g and we plug it into the f. So take this and plug it in to the f. So now this is the input into f. We get 4 times x squared minus 3, that whole mess, plus 7, right? So this is going to be the exact, so they are not going to be equivalent. There are special cases where they are, but the vast majority of the time you're going to get a different value if you do it in the opposite order.
All right, City Council member.
Sorry, it's going to be a fun day. Okay, so once we're done with that, let's take a look at this one here. So what I want you guys to do is, here's a shortened link. Go ahead and go there. It should take you to a Desmos tool. Let me pull mine up real quick. It should look kind of like this. What this is they've already plotted the two pairings we have here. So here is the kindness score to generosity, and here is the wisdom to kindness score. So what you want to do is you want to try and write an equation that you think best models the situation here. I will give you a slight hint here, in that the wisdom and kindness score, so the red one here, is an exponential function. And then the purple one is going to be linear. Again, yours does not have to be exact and perfect. You want to get it relatively close, so you can kind of type things in and see if you can get so it kind of shows closely. You can kind of do some zooming in to make sure it kind of fits pretty good, but go ahead and try that out. Try and find some equations which model that well. Once you feel like you have them, go ahead and come back here and I'll keep going. Okay, so I've already kind of done these. One that works really well for the purple one is going to be 0.36x plus 9. Oh, what's some other line? Sorry. Y equals 0.36x plus 9. And this gives us a pretty good model of that purple one. And then the other, I'm actually going to do some color changing here. I'm going to make that purple so we can kind of relate those. And then for the other one, a pretty good model here is 0.3 times 2 raised to the x is a fairly good model for that one. And again, I'll change those colors to being red so we can kind of match those up a little bit easier. Okay, so if you got a different model, that's fine, right? These are just ones that work out very, very, very well. If you was really off, maybe changing to use mine for the rest of this. But again, it's not about you having to get this perfectly. It's kind of a guess and check thing. It takes a bit of time. So once you have your model, the benefit is these equations are so much nicer for actually trying to do things out, right? So let's now use these, right? We got some equations. Then we're going to use those to try and relate, get an equation that relates the wisdom of the Grand Master's generosity to directly to the generosity, sorry. So how can we do this? Well, let's take a look at what we actually have, right? Well, I have two equations. My first one is how my kindness score comes from my wisdom, which is my 0.32 raised to the w. Now I'm using a little bit. I'm using like k and w as opposed to x and y, just because we're talking about kindness score, wisdom, and gives, right? So That's the equation that I'm going to use there, right? And then my other one I could get my gives from my kindness score by doing 0.36 times the kindness score plus 9. So if I'm trying to get an equation that relates my wisdom directly to the generosity, so my generosity from my wisdom, well, I can take this and plug it in to that. Oh, sorry, you didn't see that. Take this and plug it into the kindness score here. I'm a little off center. There we go. So that would give me my generosity from kindness score from wisdom is equal to, well, that's 0.36. I'm going to do some color swapping here. I'm going to do all of this is red, right? Times 0.32 raised to the W plus 9. Sorry. Almost done, I promise. Okay, so that gives us this. So I did this one in red so that you can see, hey, this thing is what went into the K, and now it's shown here. So now I have an equation that relates that I can plug in my wisdom, and I can get my generosity out of that, right? And that's going to be right here. Again, I could simplify that out by multiplying this times this and make it look a little bit prettier, but this is as good as we really need it. I trust that you were capable of doing 0.36 times 0.3 if you need to. All right, so let's hop back over here and let's wrap this up. So just to yourself, go ahead and kind of think out, well, how would you explain to yourself how these compositions work? And then give yourself an example of a composition of functions. You can kind of talk out loud to yourself if it doesn't make you feel too weird. It does actually help quite a bit. Or just kind of say in your head, well, what do I know? How do I actually see these things working? So once we are done with that, here is our homework for today. Again, sorry about those interruptions. I will stop making videos until those stop. So, see ya.